Thanks for tuning in once again to the OFN today. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, as we have another good show for you. We're going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts with our first guest who will be with us. Actually, he's also our only guest for the show today, Kent Sterling from the Kent Sterling YouTube channel. That's coming up in a few minutes. We're also going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints. And if you want to find out more about the Saints and the Jags, check out the library here at Ourlads, because we have an interview as far as Jacksonville. I did one with Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country. That was about a month ago. And also Darian Gray from whodatdish.com was also right around the same time frame. And so those are already available for you if you want to check them out. And we're going to go into, now that it's about a month since those interviews, we're going to update what we think about their offseason at this point, talk about some draft needs and all that kind of good stuff. So I'll be doing that. Of course, they did such a great job informing me of the depth chart and the needs for their teams, because that was right around free agency, just before free agency, actually. And so that gave me a really good indication of what the team needed. And so whatever they weren't able to add to the roster at that time, I still have that information. And we'll use that to go over the New Orleans Saints and the Jacksonville Jags. Now, I got to keep doing something silly. I got to put this magazine. Where did I put it? I put it behind my... There it is. My big green screen, which is actually a blue screen. I've got my guide here, my Ourlads draft guide. So you got to order this if you haven't already done it at ourlads.com. And again, I advise you to both order the draft guide and the PDF. This way, while you're waiting for the draft guide, you have the PDF. And again, you're going to not find a better draft guide out there. Anybody that purchases this draft guide in either form loves it and always comes back. All right. And stay with us for the next, hopefully for the next few years, but stay with us, because I'm going to do some PDF giveaways over the next week for sure, because that's going to lead up into the draft and our draft coverage, which is going to continue live coverage Thursday and Friday. So what we're going to do is, with all of my experience, and I've been to a handful of drafts on my own on Radio Row. So that, but more importantly, of course, having all of the information, not just from these guides, but directly from the mouths of, and the brains, of course, of our top scouts at Ourlads, Dave Syvertson and John Cooper, two of which, who will be with me next Wednesday for our final mock draft show. So we're going to do it Wednesday night, a week from yesterday. And that should be roughly sometime between 6 and 8 p.m. Eastern. So that'll be our special OFN today. Next Wednesday, both Dave Cooper and John Cooper and Dave Syvertson will join me as we take a look at their final mock draft. It better be their final mock draft, because the draft starts the day after. And what's going to be so fun about our draft coverage on Thursday and Friday is that we're going to be able to go through, as we go through each pick. It's, again, it's not going to be a team broadcast. So we're going to go through all, I've got, again, all the information. We've got all of the needs from all of the interviews and all of our contacts and all of the research to be able to, and again, from our scouts, to be able to go through team by team, what you should be looking forward to just before teams make their selections all the way through on Thursday and Friday. But right now, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I want to start talking about the Indianapolis Colts. I haven't been able to talk about the Colts for several months now, but we finally were able to pin this very busy gentleman down Mr. Kent Sterling, and get him on the program and get us educated on what's going on with those Colts.
Hey, you know what, Greg? I don't know to what extent I'm going to be able to educate anybody about the Colts, but maybe I could educate Chris Ballard about what the Colts' needs are a little bit, and I hope he's listening.
I agree with that 100%, Kent, and that's why I can think of nobody else better that I'd like to ask exactly those questions, which is why you're here, and I've got a lot of them, and I know the Colts don't have, of course, we all know they don't have a first-round draft pick, and the interesting thing is, well, first I want to say this, because we haven't talked since the season really took off in the beginning, and then, of course, we all know what happened once Daniel Jones got hurt, but I was watching your videos, and everybody was just so captivated with the start by the Colts. And it was just amazing and almost felt reminiscent of what we watched with the Rams in Kurt Warner's first year. Like, where did this come from? And it was exciting. But Kurt Warner never got hurt that year. Jones did, and everything just fell apart. So yeah, that must have been just an exciting season, even though it didn't end anywhere near the way that the fans wanted it to.
And there was another reason for it, Greg, and there was the schedule got really, really tough after that 7-1 start and that overtime win against the Falcons in Berlin. That was their last win of the season. And that overtime win, you saw some chinks in the armor a little bit, and then the schedule got really tough. Over the course of those first 8 games where they went 7-1, they did play the Rams, they played the Broncos, reasonably good teams, right? But they also played the Titans twice. They played the Raiders. They played the Cardinals. And you felt a little bit like it might have been fool's gold. And then when Daniel Jones got hurt, first with a cracked fibula, and then with the full-blown torn Achilles, you figured that the die was cast, and that defense wasn't going to be able to rise to the level it needed to make the Colts competitive without an insanely productive and efficient offense.
Are the fans, have they been all for, or mostly for, bringing Jones back, giving him the money, and keeping their fingers crossed that he can get healthy after what they saw last year to start the season?
You know what? I think they had no choice, because you weren't going to get anybody better in free agency. You didn't have the equity to be able to trade for anybody because you gave up the 2 1s for Sauce Gardner. And so it was either Jones or bust. Shane Steichen really, really likes Daniel Jones. The fans are a little bit unsold yet about him because of his inability to stay healthy. But Shane Steichen absolutely is a believer in Daniel Jones. And so, you know what? Hey, we'll ride with Steichen. Steichen is a really good offensive coach. And the offense last year, the Colts scored the second most points they've ever scored in a season in their history, just behind, about 50 points behind, the 2004 Indianapolis Colts with Manning and Harrison and Wayne and James and that team when it was really rolling. So that offense was real. The defense was awful. Last 4 years, they have allowed a minimum of 412 points. And that's where they got to get better. And that's where the kind of the draft savvy Chris Ballard really has to attack this roster.
Okay. Let's start on offense with that quarterback situation. So what's the health status right now? What are you hearing about Jones?
That he's on track to participate in camp.
Okay.
That he's good to go. They feel like he's good to go with his rehab, that he's working. What all the guys who tear their Achilles, and we've had a bunch of them here. We had Tyrese Halliburton with the Pacers. They all say, oh, this isn't going to take me that long. And then they figure out over time that a surgically repaired Achilles is not a quick bounce back type injury. And so Daniel Jones has kind of figured that out. He was talking about OTAs at one point. Now he's talking about being ready maybe to go as camp starts, but certainly ready to play once the season starts.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. What's next for Anthony Richardson?
Well, it's going to be somewhere else. Whatever's next, it isn't going to be here. Okay. He isn't going to be the backup quarterback here. I think he should be. If you got a guy with the physical gifts of Anthony Richardson who can play winning football, he's capable of playing winning football. He's got a winning record as a starter in the NFL to this point. He's 8-7 as a starter. Some of those games he got hurt in, and either Minshew or Flacco had to come in and kind of, continue the work that Richardson had done. But Shane Steichen So when Shane Steichen loses trust in a guy, that trust, it's gone forever.
Okay.
And it's gone with Anthony Richardson. The way he talks about Richardson, it's a lot of past tense going on as he talks about Richardson. So I believe that his days as an Indianapolis Colt are over.
Okay, so are they comfortable then and do you anticipate that this is one of those deals that we tend to see a lot during draft weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
And not to get ahead of ourselves, but Kenny Moore is kind of in the same situation. The nickel cornerback, he and the Colts have decided it would be better for him to play someplace else too. So he's on the trading block. And those two guys, I would expect maybe draft night, maybe Friday, they package one with the other with that 47th pick. Maybe they move up to 40 or 41, something like that. I could see that happening.
Okay. Are they comfortable with Riley Leonard as a number 2?
They are. He played relatively well in the season finale where he had to play because Philip Rivers played his 3 games. There's no point in him sacrificing life and limb for a team that was dead in the playoff race. So they put Riley Leonard in there, and he played relatively well in that lone game as a starter, really threw the ball pretty well. And it wasn't against the A team for the Texans, but he acquitted himself well enough that they feel good about him as a backup.
As projects go, not that he hasn't had a ton of experience in college, but I just must tell you that last year in the draft, one of my sleeper, I knew he was going to be a college free agent quarterbacks, was Seth Hennigan. I really like Seth Hennigan. And I think under the right offensive guy, which I think, he's under, he might be somebody to keep an eye on in the next couple of years. Maybe he could turn into a nice serviceable backup as well. So it's looking like, again, but we all know it's all about keeping Daniel Jones healthy.
Yeah.
And if they can do that, then the Colts offense should be really dangerous. But they did trade Michael Pittman, and there seems to be a big opening there. Would that be the case?
I don't know whether it's the case or not. I don't know what Ashton Dulin can do in that spot. Every time he's been asked to produce, like, he is a really good special teamer. He's great on teams. And if he can use his athletic ability to do what he's done on a regular basis, what he's done as kind of a backup coming in and playing kind of spot, having spot duty if Pittman needed to sit a play or Pierce was out for a game with a concussion, something like that. Ashton Dulin has always been really pretty good. And so while they signed Westbrook Akina during the offseason, I think that it's kind of Ashton Dulin's job to lose. People keep saying that they think that they could draft a wide receiver at 47 or at 78. I don't see that happening because this defense has serious holes, bigger holes than they've got at wide receiver.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. That's for sure. Offensive, let's take a look at besides wide receiver. So along the offensive line, Travis is now definitely going to be taking over. Braden Smith is gone. He's the guy, right, at right tackle?
He's likely the guy. They could move Gonsalves back out and slide Travis in. They're undecided whether Travis is going to be the starting right guard or the starting right tackle, and Gonsalves will move to the other spot.
Okay, so either way, we're going to see Travis and Gonsalves started. We know Gonsalves will, of course, but Travis ready for full-time duty to start the season and see how that goes. Do they need a couple of really good backups, somebody that they can trust both inside and outside, or are they comfortable there with what they have?
I think they got to be comfortable because I don't know where you're going to go get better backups. I don't think in the draft they're going to do that kind of, again, they just have too many holes on defense to sort of luxuriate themselves in getting backup offensive tackles or guards. I think get guys off the street that can kind of be what a rookie tackle taken in the fifth round might be.
Which offensive lineman would you be, if you're a fan, would you be like, oh, I don't want to lose that guy because of who's on the bench?
Quentin Nelson.
Okay.
Yeah, the difference between Quentin Nelson and a backup left guard is enormous.
Okay.
Like, he's as good a guard as there is in the NFL. He is so important, not just at the initial line of scrimmage type of seal block for Jonathan Taylor, but he can knock a guy down, then go to the next level and take on two more guys. You wonder why Jonathan Taylor last year and in 2021 too, able to like take 50 plus yard carries to the house. A lot of it was Tanner Bortolini, also really good.
Yeah.
Both those guys getting out in space, they're able to clear space. And they were terrific in that role last year.
Yeah, all you have to do is, again, you talked about the draft. I mean, you look at right here, 4th round, 3rd round, 4th round, 3rd round. These are not free agents. These are not first-round picks, except for Nelson. That was a while ago. That's good drafting. So,
and you know what? The O-line coach, Tony Sperano Jr., does an absolutely fantastic job with those guys.
Okay, so quickly on Nelson. I mean, what happened there for a year or two? Was it injury or what was going on there? Because it looked like it was like, oh, is that it for Quentin Nelson? And all of a sudden, he just picked back up where he left off after that year or two lull.
He is a really tough guy. And so he isn't even going to show up on the injury report most of the times when he's dinged up. He gets dinged up. And I think his back was dinged up for a while. And you didn't hear him bitch and moan about it. He just went out and kept playing, not at the typical Quentin Nelson level. And then last year, he was back.
Are they comfortable after Tyler Warren? I know, Cox and Ogletree, they're basically blocking tight ends, but I know that we've talked about this for years, and they finally got Warren, but are they pretty comfortable there? That's not an issue. They're going to be fine this year.
They're real comfortable with Mo Alley-Cox. Mo's a terrific blocker, a great teammate, really, really smart guy. He's got big old hands. And so when he needs to make a catch, he can. He's never going to be a Pro Bowl tight end. But as a guy who comes in, and maybe you got Warren on one side and Alley-Cox on the other, if you got a big package, that makes sense. If Warren ever gets hurt, and all he did was play last year, he never sat. Alley-Cox is a guy who can step in. Now, Ogletree, as the third guy, they're bringing Ogletree back. He can get hurt. And so he's a little bit injury prone, so you don't feel great about him as a backup. But Mo Alley-Cox is fine.
Okay, now let's talk about that defense. So let's start up front on the interior, because what was a super strength just a couple of years ago with Stewart and Buckner, all of a sudden, they're both 32 years old. Stewart did not have a good year last year. I see that there are 3 new guys added to this group. Yep. Not that any of them are anything other than stopgaps at this point. So does this a really important position, or were the stopgaps there because they're hoping that, hey, if we don't really find the right guy, then we can't take care of everything. Maybe this is what we're going to go with in 2026.
Well, they love rotating 4. So you've got Stewart and Buckner, and you feel good about them. If DeForest Buckner's neck surgery, they say it was successful, that he's feeling much better, but can DeForest Buckner make it through 17 games? Grover Stewart is a war horse. Excuse me. Stewart, still, despite his age, playing really good football. So I think, and Edibore is getting better and better and better and better. So I think they feel pretty good about DTs.
Okay. On the edge, of course, they had some key losses, and including Kwity Paye. So you look at them, they bring in Key. Clemens, just a rotational guy. They had a 2nd-round draft pick last year, so I'm sure they're hoping for, a big boost there. We know Latu, and his talent, but this has to be a position of need, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Kwity Paye was a disappointment as a 21st overall pick 4 or 5 years ago. 8.5 sacks, that's his high watermark. They replaced him with Arden Key. Arden Key's high watermark as a sack master, 6.5. So I think they kind of took a step back a little bit, but they're looking at JT Tuimoloau as a guy who can maybe step in there as a starter. They're hoping that he can. They've got Marion Hobby is the new defensive line coach. They feel good about him, and maybe he can coach JT up a little bit and get a little bit better production out of him in year 2.
Okay. Also, you take a look at the linebacker positions, and I know they don't use. Yeah, I think under this defense, they really haven't used more than 2 at a time for a while. But still, do they have 2 that they can really count on?
No. They got to draft a guy at 47 or move up to 40 or 41, take Jacob Rodriguez, get a guy who can knock the ball loose, and hope that he's as good as you think he might be as a rookie. Because you really don't have a start. I'm not sure you have any starting linebackers on this roster. I'm not sure Akeem Davis Gaither is a starter. There's a reason he's a former Cardinal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, he's a former Cardinal,
Yeah,
and he's going to come in here and be the bell cow at linebacker. And then who you got next to him? You got a guy, frankly, I've never heard of. He was a rookie with the Bucks last year. I hope he can. If he can play, that'd be wonderful. And then you've got Austin Ajiake, who is an undrafted free agent and a good teams guy, but as a starting linebacker, that is not where you go. Yeah, there's my man.
Yeah, you don't like it. You don't like it when you're checking out for scouting reports and they're not there. It's a bad sign.
No, that's John Bullock. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I look forward to meeting him. But if you're going to trust a starting spot to John Bullock, you know something that literally everybody else in the NFL doesn't.
I like the Rodriguez thing, though. I'm a big fan, and I think if the Colts can grab Rodriguez, that would be a win-win-win with their first pick of the draft. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, and then the secondary. So first question regarding Ward. What's the deal as far as his health?
They say he's going to play, and so he feels good, and you just got to stay away from getting your bell rung because that dude had 3 concussions last year that caused him to miss time. One caused by Drew Ogletree in warmups. They collided in warmups, and Mooney Ward was down unconscious for a good couple of minutes. They had to take him off the field on a stretcher. And other than that, then came back, played. He wasn't sure at the end of the season whether he wanted to come back and play or not. Yeah, when you go through a concussion and you got to stay in a darkened room for a while, that kind of erodes your confidence in a lot of things. And when you get your health back, you take it seriously. But he says he's going to come back, and he thinks he's going to be 100%. And, knock wood, he is.
Okay, so but obviously they can't count on that because, like you said, you got a concussion in practice. So anything can happen at any time with concussions. We know that. And then, of course, you mentioned Kenny Moore is going to get traded. But we talked last year about really liking the 3rd-round pick, Justin Wally, before his injury. So I'm assuming that they're really hoping that he'll slide in for Kenny Moore. Is that the hope? But even if that happens, cornerback has got to be a top need, correct?
Slide in for Kenny Moore and then back up either of the other 2 guys, and they feel really good about him. They love Justin Wally. And if he comes back healthy and hadn't lost any athleticism, any speed, he played great during training camp until he got hurt in the joint practice with the Ravens. So they love him. And that gives them depth that they didn't necessarily have. And now one of the things that I think they benefit from last year is they had a couple of guys who had to play extended snap counts at cornerback who you really didn't want to play. You didn't want to play Jalen Jones a whole lot last year. And so, they've got guys, at least they've been out there, at least they know what it's like, and they've been coached a little bit and might show a little bit of improvement. So I think the depth at corner is going to improve because you've got Sauce and you've got Mooney and you've got Wally. And so I think you feel pretty good about that position.
Yeah, I remember talking about how I thought I was going to have to make Justin Wally one of my sleeper picks because he was, even Ourlads had him as a 6th or 7th round grade. And yet the Colts took him in the 3rd round. It was like, well, they sure liked him enough to not have to wait until round 6. And he definitely delivered until the injury. So we'll see if he could deliver on the field when the season starts. Okay, and at safety, another player who had a really good college career, looked like another nice little sleeper pick was Hunter Waller. And then he gets hurt. He doesn't play, but now he's penciled in to start this year. So is that what they're looking at? And again, Wally, Hunter, a couple of rookies who didn't play. These are a couple of guys that they're counting on.
Yeah, I don't know what in the world they're going to do at box. That's and Willer's the best guess, maybe. Wanya Thomas, maybe they signed him as a free agent. We've yet to see him. Cam Bynum at the free, you feel good about, but box safety is kind of, I think that's what they do in the third round. At 78, I think they go get a strong safety, a guy who projects toward being, that's what Nick Cross was. Nick went in the 90s, but he was a third round pick and kind of he grew into it. I was really surprised they let him go via free agency. Like you don't have to pay a lot to strong safeties. And he didn't cost a lot when he moved on. And so I was surprised they let him go. But Lou Anarumo and Ballard and Steichen were adamant once the offseason started that they needed to get faster in the front seven. And I took that strong safety, that box safety, as one of the front seven.
Okay. Yeah, because we had talked about Cross, and then for him to actually go out there finally and break out, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? I didn't understand that. But like you said, I guess there's a reason, and there always is. Okay. So in order then on defense, you would say linebacker first, corner second, strong safety third?
I'd go linebacker, strong safety, and then edge. Just because I think they're a little bit better off at edge.
That's right, edge.
And so I think Tui Moloau, he's a really interesting guy. He led the Big Ten in sacks as a senior coming out of Ohio State, taken 45th last year. I like Tui Moloau. He's a clear-eyed guy, good guy to talk to in the locker room, and a guy with some explosiveness. And he's got good, heavy hands. So I think that he can do a number of things at the edge. He's not a dedicated pass rush guy. He can cover they like versatile edges. And they've got a guy in Latu who's not real versatile. So I know that at the other side, what they valued in pay was that he was a good run stopping edge, but he couldn't get to the quarterback. He had 4 sacks last year, and that's not going to get it done.
Yeah, I watched a lot of Big Ten football, obviously, as a Michigan fan up against Ohio State, and I just really felt that when he went to the pros, he was going to be awfully good, and I still think that's the case. They all develop at a different rate, and maybe he's ready for a breakout this season, which would be just perfect timing for the Colts and their defense. Okay, so special teams, taking a look there, are they in good shape? Is there anything at all that they need to do to improve their special teams?
I think they're in really good shape, and that's one of the position battles that I think is going to be really interesting and very compelling is Blake Grupe and Spencer Schrader. Schrader got his knee torn apart. A really dirty play by a Raider. Kind of caught him either on an extra point or a field goal, hit his kicking leg and shattered that knee. And so Spencer, then I don't know if he shattered it, but he tore the ACL. And so he projects toward being healthy. And then Blake Grupe came in at a little bit later in the season. I can't even remember who the guy was. Oh, Michael Badgley. Badgley couldn't hit extra points. And that, as it would bother any normal coach, and he had to go. So they got Blake Grupe, and I don't think he may have missed one kick beyond 50. And other than that, he was letter perfect. And he's a little bitty guy with an attitude. He's the smallest guy you've ever seen in an NFL locker room. He's like 5'5", 142 pounds. And so you look at him and you're like, well, you know what? The laundry's over there, kid. But no, he's the kicker, and he's got a boomstick, and all he did was make kicks.
Did the Anthony Gould draft pick work? Is he doing what he was supposed to do in the return game?
You know what? They keep trying other guys back there. So I don't think so. Okay. I think they're going to continue to try to find guys who can field the ball cleanly and then make a difference. Because the return game with the new kickoff rules, it's much more important than it was. You can kind of get by with a guy who was just sure-handed. Take your touchback, go run offense, go fair catch punts, and you really weren't going to be behind. You didn't suffer a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah.
I think you do now. And so they got to take that a little bit more seriously.
Are there any, we spoke about a few of these injured players, especially in the secondary. Are there any other players that were injured last year that fans maybe outside of Indianapolis aren't aware of that are expected to take on a more significant role this year?
You know, we talk about tackle depth on the offensive side of the ball. Blake Freeland was out the entire season. Blake, coming out of college, he just wasn't heavy enough to kind of plant and hold guys off, but he had great feet. and then he built his body and he lost some of his speed. I think that if he's kind of matured into his body a little bit and he can get the speed back from where he was a rookie, then he gives them bona fide depth at that tackle spot that they need.
Yes.
But other than that, not really.
Okay. And give me like a surprise pick at some point early. And I would have guessed it would have to be on offense because we know most of their picks, we would imagine, are going to be on defense. But let's just say they feel that there's a player on their board that is just so much higher than a defensive player that they can't pass on them. Which position would that be?
Wide receiver. Like wide receiver 2. And the guy that I keep coming back to, and I'm spacing his name, the kid from Tennessee, who's kind of
Brazil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brazil. Guys like him. And I know he's been in to work out for the Colts, and I know that they like him. So that's kind of my pick to click if they go offense.
Okay. And what are you going to be doing as draft coverage? You're going to be doing live coverage all weekend?
We'll start Friday because there's no first round pick. So Thursday night is kind of a night just to relax. And then Friday we'll get after it. And I would assume that there will be a lot of activity, either via a trade, Anthony Richardson or Kenny Moore going someplace else. Maybe that happens on Saturday, but I think they move up from 47, get to about 40. And I think that that'll be determined. If somebody goes haywire and takes Jacob Rodriguez at like 34, I don't think the Colts can get to him. But I think if he's still on the board at 40 or 41, I think the Colts may make a move, get up there and go get Jacob Rodriguez.
So he's the number one target. That's the player you're looking at. And that makes a lot of sense.
The thing that they've missed, like when Darius Leonard got hurt and then he couldn't play anymore, you didn't have a guy who could change a game by forcing a turnover. True. And 7 forced fumbles by Rodriguez last year at Texas Tech, that speaks to me.
Yes, he's a playmaker, and you can say everything you want about size and all that. Matter of fact, I was having a discussion, I forget who it was, because C.J. Allen, most people expect him to be the top middle linebacker chosen into the draft. And I just told whoever I was on, it must have been during a mock draft, and I said, I don't care about all that combine stuff when it comes down to some specific players that just are better football players than what you see at the combine and what the scouts are telling you. The guy runs. And CJ Allen might be a better specimen than Jacob Rodriguez, but CJ Allen does not make plays. Jacob Rodriguez does.
And Jacob Rodriguez, you know what? You can shave a tenth of a second off your 40 time by taking great angles to the ball carrier. And that's what he does. Like, he takes great angles. And so that's going to compensate. I mean, what was he at the combine or at his pro day? He was like a 4.5, 4.58, something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't fast. That's for sure.
If you're smart enough, you can overcome that kind of lack of speed. Although I'm kind of arguing with Anarumo and Ballard, who both said we got to get faster. So maybe they're going to look at speed.
4.57. Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's it. But hey, you know what? Sometimes you just can't pass on that type of a situation to grab a player not just a player that fits a need, but a player that also winds up at a very important position, lining everybody up, all that other stuff, being the quarterback of the defense. It's such an important aspect of your defense. And the Colts don't have that player right now. So
no, and they really don't have anybody who can force a turnover. And they're in any better way to get somebody's offense off the field than take the damn ball from them.
That's it, especially if you have some defensive deficiencies like they do right now.
Yeah.
So, Kent, I appreciate it. It's always great talking about the Colts with you, and I look forward to doing it again sometime before the season begins and after the draft. And I've got links in the description of how everybody can check out your work. So thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
You got it, Kent. All right, Kent Sterling from the Kent Sterling YouTube channel. Again, links in the description of this video. So you can check out Kent's work on his YouTube channel, keeping in mind that it's not just NFL. And boy, did they have a really good time last year with college football. Yeah, things might have tapered down a little bit with the Colts at midseason with the Daniel Jones injury, but they sure did not taper down on the college side. And that's the fun thing about sports. You know, you're rooting for your teams, and and just imagine the beginning of the season, if you're an Indianapolis Colt fan and an Indiana Hoosier fan, and you're starting out the season and the Hoosiers haven't lost. The Colts are the talk of the NFL. Life couldn't be any better. And then, of course, Daniel Jones gets hurt, and you're thinking, oh no, here we go again. But then you look over, and you still got your Hoosiers, and they keep on rolling, and they don't lose, and they do something that nobody expected that they could do, and that's win a national championship. And look, we're going to be talking a lot of college football on this show, of course, here on the Ourlads Football Network. And that's something that I just got to keep reminding our new viewers, since this is a new show. We just started it on Monday. And again, we're airing the show right now. Our schedule is Monday through Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern, Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow, Anthony Miller will join me, and we'll talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, there's a big potential trade out there with A.J. Brown. So we're definitely going to talk to Anthony about that, go over potential first-round picks for the Eagles and so forth. So life was really good to be an Indiana Hoosier fan last year. And that's one of the stories that, we loved talking about all season long last year. And we're going to do that and pick it up real early this year. So there's still a lot of spring practice going on, and kind of feel with everything happening in the NFL with free agency and then pre-draft and draft and even post-draft, because it's still hot. And then everybody gears up for the schedule and all, but you get that post-draft and there's still a lot to go over, because you obviously zero in on your team for 3 days for the most part. Yes, you're watching a lot of content and you're hearing players go here, there, and everywhere, and you're going, wow, I can't believe that, all that kind of stuff. And then you can't really digest it, though, over the weekend. So what do? Well, you have to, again, not only maybe reference your draft guide from Ourlads, PDF or hard copy, but, which is really a great thing to do. No fooling. But it also is important because then you get to take a look at things like this, the Ourlads depth chart. And you go over the depth chart, you take a look at all your new players, and then you reference the scouting report. But you do it for the other teams that you weren't paying attention to for the most part over the weekend. And that's the fun of it. You've got several months to prepare, of course. Everybody's different as far as how much you really want to get involved with it. If you're like a freak, like I am, and maybe some of you guys out there, regarding how much content you want to digest, it's all there now. There's no excuse. It's just time and desire. That's it. Time and desire, as far as how much content you want to digest and how much of it that you want to digest for a reason. Not just for your own satisfaction, but debates with your friends at the office, online, wagering, fantasy. So there's an awful lot of reasons why you want to take advantage of that. And that's what we're going to do. So we'll do that for the first few weeks. I'm going to try to bring in as many like Kent and other contacts that we have here for every team. I haven't needed to talk to anybody about the Colts since I have Kent along with us for maybe 3 years, something like that, 3 or 4 years. And the same thing goes for maybe half of the teams in the NFL that I cover. And also same thing goes for about a good dozen or so college football. But the bottom line, and I'm only talking about ones that have been with me for years, we probably have right around the same amount of contacts in college that we have in the NFL, and maybe a little bit more. Obviously, there's a lot more teams, but for us to be able to find a Rice Owls insider, it's just not going to happen. I'd like it to happen, okay, and that's one of the things that I'm definitely going to make sure I do here when I market everything all during the off season, heading into the season. Things of the nature of, hey, if you're a if you're a reporter, if you write for a specific team, and you're basically a professional. You're somebody who does this for a living, and you cover whatever team, especially if you're in the group of five. Hey, bring it on, because there's even Power Four programs that. Remember, I was saying the other day about how hard it is to find specific NFL analysts that we could either find because we want to bring them in, or we actually, because again, I said this before with finding analysts, it's very difficult, because what you do is you put a list together of who are the best analysts out there. And then you say, okay, here's like, 5 or 6. And I'm when I say analysts, I mean, again, these got either own a YouTube channel, you've had it for a few years. Obviously, I check it out. You do a good job. You know what you're talking about. You got a good following. Same thing on social media. Are you working for one of these sports sites? You're the official, beat guy for that site. All of that, and then I'll say, okay, well, here's like a good 5 or 7, and then I send out emails requesting to see if they can come on. And then what will happen is sometimes there's a couple of teams where I'll send all these emails out and I get nothing. And that just happens. I got to believe that 50% of the times, I don't even know if they get the contact information. But the other 50%, whatever, they're too busy. They don't have time. They have no relationship with Ourlads. They don't want a relationship with Ourlads for whatever reason. Shame on them. And then you just move on, and that's okay. We get that. But it's not like, oh, okay, well, who we wanted wasn't there, so let's go settle and bring in analyst number 15. Oh, he wants to do it. Okay, bring him in. No, we're not going to do that. It's not fair to you, and definitely ain't fair to us. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to bring people in that we don't feel are qualified. And trust me, there's more than enough, especially now with social media and with the online businesses out there in the sports industry on a per team basis. Everybody has for all 32 teams and all 100 and whatever teams in college football, I don't know what, like 20 to 30 different websites covering the teams. So it's not like that we're searching and we can't find any of this content for these teams, but finding the right ones, that's really all that matters. Okay. And again, the bottom line is regarding that rant is we're going to be talking after we get through with the NFL right after the draft. We're going to move into college football because that'll give us the time through spring practice. They'll all be over. There'll be the break between spring and fall practice, which is a few months. And that'll be the time right there because it's really doesn't make any sense for us to contact any of these college football guys or girls during spring practice, especially now at the portal. We want to contact them after spring practice, give them a little while. Then they get the opportunity to do their own backup research and put all their information together. So a couple of months out, which is probably about, I'd say July, early July, the latest, we'll start conducting college football interviews and bringing in as many as we can to talk about as many teams as we can to prepare you guys for the regular season. So trust me, college football is going to come. All right. Now, before we wrap up the Colts, I'll be talking about Jacksonville and New Orleans here in a couple of minutes. And if you guys ever have any questions or comments, anything at all, while you're watching these live or even on demand, just go ahead, get the conversation going, and I'll be happy to answer your question if I can and get it all going. And of course, if it's on demand and you want to make a comment, a suggestion, anything at all, and it may not even be for me. It could be to everybody out there that is watching the video. That's what it's all about, developing a nice community on the Ourlads Football Network, utilizing the Ourlads Football channel as our port and our community, and we got to get that going. And we also got to get the subscriber base open. Again, we have a goal of 10,000 by the time we hit week 1. So we have a few months. We're close to 6,000. I want to get to 10,000 before week 1. And I know it's doable because we reach more than enough viewership And I know that a great percentage of you have not subscribed yet. So if you enjoy the content, you want it to keep going, you like the fact that we're doing it 5 days a week, all of that stuff, then subscribing is not just about, I know some people think it's silly or whatever, but there's a reason for it. And that is because we want to keep this going as long as we can. Because you know what? If the subscribers don't pick up, if therefore the advertising doesn't pick up, well, they're going to look at me and they're going to go, well, I don't think we really need you anymore. So it doesn't matter how good the content is. What matters is that you guys like it enough to put in the effort to subscribe, to like, to share, to get us going in the community and build up a really cool back and forth, which I know you guys can. And I promise this, and this is something I have to come up with a really good, like, creative slogan towards it. So everybody really knows what I'm talking about, but it's really simple. And that is, I promise you, absolutely 100% guaranteed promise that every time you watch this show, every time, every single show, you'll learn something that you didn't know before. 100%. And isn't that all it's about? That's what I think. And hopefully we can entertain you along the way. And you know where the entertainment comes from? Revenue. The more revenue we make, the more we put it back into the programming. And then all of a sudden, instead of having a part-time editor, oh, we got a full-time editor. And now all of a sudden we're doing some really cool stuff. So not that we're not doing some decent stuff right now, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So let's just wrap up with the Colts. Let me see here if there's anything else that I didn't get the opportunity to go over with Kent. Boy, we covered a lot. Of course, the Michael Pittman trade. We talked about that. You know what's interesting about the Pittman trade? I started a Jets channel, a New York Jets channel called Jets Chronicles. And I just started it last month. And I'm not going to get into it full time for a little while because we're doing this. But I'll be getting into that. And the reason I did it was because I'm a Jet fan and I wanted to make sure that I got my voice in and I was able to counter a lot of the crap I hear from other radio stations, channels, whatever. Obviously, Matt O'Leary, who was my guest yesterday, is not one of those that I have to worry about or you guys have to worry about. And I'm really happy to see that Matt has done a really good job and his subscriber base is up, and that's awesome. And that's because he's doing a good job. But there are people who do a bad job and their subscriber base is up. And I see that. And I definitely want to make sure that I can counter that. But the reason I brought this up is because, and it has nothing to do with YouTube. If you're familiar or not with WFAN in New York, you should be if you're a sports fan. So obviously that's probably the biggest sports radio station in the country, at least the most well-known. And they have a morning show, Boomer and Geo. If you have YouTube, you can see it's on there. It's on the CBS Sports Network. And so Boomer and Geo, Boomer Esiason, the former quarterback, and Geo, he's his sidekick, hosts the show. And I think Geo is very funny. I think he fits a really good role, and that's great. But there are certain people that don't understand when you got a role, and that's nice. But don't go over that line that you're going to cross when it comes to what your role is and what your role is not, what you're good at and what you're not really good at. And one of the things Gio did a few months ago was he went over the line, and I don't know if anybody corrected him because the only reason I even heard it was because I was tuning in to there was another show on WFAN at the time. All you have, and you can check out the Jets Chronicle website and you'll see the actual clip and you'll see my actual comment on it. It was about 5 minutes. I actually put a video about it. So it was like I did two long videos, and then I spliced up a couple of shorter videos, and that was one of them. And so it's on the channel. And so there was this moron on one of the other shows on WFAN who was trying to act like he's somebody. And he talks about, he knows from a source that, Woody Johnson was in the same room as the GM Muji and Aaron Glenn. And it sounded like that was it. Like it was those three guys. And I guess there had to be a fourth guy, because how else do you hear about this stuff? So, but that's what he implied, that they were in this like meeting. And how many people are going to be in this meeting? There shouldn't be many, when you have the main power brokers there. So he talked about how Woody pressured Aaron Glenn, or basically dictated to Aaron Glenn, that he was going to be the defensive coordinator and not. They were looking for Wink Martindale at the time. Wink thought he was going to get the job. And at the last minute, Aaron Glenn decided against it. And according to this guy, well, that was because Woody stepped in, shot it down. I'm not going to pay another salary when all you do it. That's why I hired you. Complete and utter nonsense. Okay, utter nonsense, especially because, again, how would you have even found out about something like this when everybody knows that building, that front office has been completely shut down to the media? Nobody knows anything going on inside the Jets headquarters. Nobody. Because it used to be the exact opposite with Robert Saleh. Okay. And that's what I think is just funny as a Jet fan, that you see Robert Saleh getting another job. You see Mike LaFleur getting a head coaching job. And you're just like, how? Okay. Everybody deserves a second chance. But we remember how, they didn't inherit a terrible situation. They created, it wasn't a great situation, but it was here, and they came in here, it wasn't great, and they left it, wasn't great. They didn't do anything. And if anything, they caused it to really get even more dysfunctional, because everybody knew what was going on in the building, and it was just really bad, really bad. So this guy thinks, oh, well, I'm going to tell everybody about this story, and I'll get some chumps here in New York to believe me on this radio station. So I checked out the next morning show, because I figured, well, come on. I mean, Boomer has got to say something about this. It was a pretty important deal. And sure enough, and again, I have this in the clip, Boomer comes out and basically just laughs it off. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of, he says. And I was actually a bit surprised, because I was like, oh, that's what I would say. But that's not usually what I hear from people, which is why I have a channel now. So he wound up saying that. And then I think it was the very next day, or I'm trying to remember exactly what it was for, because Boomer wasn't on there. And I happened to stumble up, because I don't watch the show a lot. I only watch the show if it is something, if I know something's going on with the Jets, because that's the only team I still follow. That's where I'm from. And so I don't follow the Nets anymore. I grew up as a New Jersey Net fan, and I used to go to the games. My dad worked at a company, and they had season tickets to everything. I mean, I really lucked out. I mean, I would be able to go to, a certain number of games at the Meadowlands for the Nets. I'd be able to go to Madison Square Garden for Ranger games. I grew up a Ranger fan, obviously. Did not stay a Ranger fan, but that's another story. So yeah, I was a Jet fan, a Ranger fan, a Net fan, and I did grow up a Yankee fan. Never got tickets, I think he had tickets to the Yankees, but he just really, baseball, no, he wasn't going to do that. But he would actually go with me to the basketball games, and we would go to the hockey games, and we would also go to the racetrack, which was also pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, that was great fun for me, and it established who I am, I guess you could say, today. So I know how it's like to be in the New York area and to digest all that information. I grew up on Mike and the Mad Dog as well. When I left the New York area when I was about 18 or 19, they were still in the midst of being, on top of the world as a duo. for the sports market. So the situation for me then over the years changed, and it was only the Jets. That was it. So now I go back, and anytime something goes on, I want to find out. And I know in order to find out, that's how I find out. Gio, Boomer, they have a show in New York. You're going to talk about it. I'm going to listen. I'm going to find out information about my team. So Boomer wasn't on the show. It was just Gio, and it was a former Jet. I don't remember who it was. And they were having this conversation, and then Gio stepped in and said, sort of like he was about to, he actually set it up where he was about to unveil. And he was going to let everybody know. He's going to inform his audience about something that he realized, but nobody else does. So this is going to be real important. Gio was going to educate his audience. And this, you're wondering how I started this about Michael Pittman. So so get this. According to Gio, he talked about, because again, everybody in the New York media trashes the Jets. It's in their bloodlines. So he goes, the Jets were incapable of convincing players to sign with them. And so I've never seen this before, he said. I've never seen this before in my life. And I'm serious, I'm not exaggerating. I've never seen this before, ever. He might have even said in all of sports, I've never seen this, where a team has had to trade for a player who didn't want to go there in order to make sure that they got him. Because they was talking about the deal for, what was the deal with the Jets? Oh, Geno. And actually there was a second one. I don't remember who was the second one. There was two. Minka Fitzpatrick. So, but he was really more siding to the Geno thing. But it was Geno and Minka Fitzpatrick. I've never seen this before. A franchise that has to trade for players because they won't sign there, and that's the only way that they can get them. I've never seen this before. So I'm listening to that, and I'm like, I was really surprised. I really was, because I didn't think Gio was that ignorant about the NFL. He basically put himself on a level that you would think about, I guess Gio is really, as far as his football acumen, is just a guy that you walk into a local bar and you sit down and shoot the shit about your favorite team. That's it. That's his level of football ability. I was surprised. I really thought he knew a little bit more about the game. There wasn't anything technical about what he said. You can check it out for yourself. I'm not misquoting him. He really believed that the Jets were the only team, not only in the NFL, like this doesn't happen in any other sport, where they have to trade for a player because, I'm not going to the Jets. I'm not going there. Oh, well, I know you're not going to sign with us, but we'll get you. We'll trade for you. We'll give them a 6th or 7th round. We'll give them garbage pick, but we have to get you. We have to give them something, because if we don't give them anything, they're going to cut you. You won't sign with us then. So we got to get you. That's the only way we can get you before they cut you and you decide to sign somewhere else, because we're so inept as an organization that you won't even consider us. So this is our strategy. And we've got to do things that no other organization in sports does. We got to trade for you before you get cut and sign elsewhere. So I'm putting the video together, and it didn't take me long to come across, because I knew all I had to do was just check what happened this offseason in the NFL. And this was one of them right off the bat. I looked and I go, there you go. This must have happened like a few days right around the time that Geno and Minka was getting traded, where Michael Pittman gets traded to the Steelers. And there you go. and then they get a draft pick, or they swap positioning, 7th to the 6th or whatever the case. I think it was 20 spots in the draft. Very similar. So, yeah. So, and that's the thing that I've mentioned already this week. The reason why I really enjoy doing this and why I want to do it is because there are just too many of those types of people out there. I can't be as funny as Gio. Gio is a good impersonator. He's really, again, good skits, things of that nature. I can't do that stuff, not to his extent with his talent, but that's what it's like. It's like me feeling, oh, I'm gonna give this a try. You watch. I got thousands and thousands of listeners out there that listen to us on a daily basis, and I'm gonna watch. I'm ready for the skit. You watch. I'm gonna be really funny, and then you do the skit, and I guess nobody says anything because even the football player didn't say a word. He just agreed, which either he was too embarrassed to say anything, or what I think is he probably didn't know either. Sorry, but a lot of these former players that get these opportunities, not all of them, but there are quite a number of them that do this. And to me, if you're a former player and you get the opportunity to be an analyst for a network or whatever, radio, whatever the case may be, the main reason that you're there the only reason you're there really to start off with is because you played the sport. So the main reason that when we have a conversation with these guys, if you're the other person in the room, you're the broadcaster, you're that professional broadcaster. So that you're a professional and that's what you do. And now you've got someone that was a professional as his field. So it's your job as a broadcaster, as a host, to get whatever you can out of that mind, out of that football mind. Take advantage of that, okay? Because he's done things that you've never done. He said things, he knows things about the sport that a lot of people don't know. Get it from him. And I'm talking about every situation that former athletes are in. And it just doesn't happen. What happens instead? Oh, they just turn into, I'm going to be a professional broadcaster type. I'm going to be just like you. And they're not just like us because we're the professional broadcasters. You're not. It's like us trying to play football. Or what I just my example of me trying to be a buffoon, or do a skit, tomfoolery. Let's make everybody laugh, which is great. I love it, but that's the example. And it is what it is. We're used to it, and I get it. Nothing I can do about it. But what I can do about it when we're talking about the draft, we're getting people ready for the start of the football season every year. We're going week to week in the NFL and college football and getting everybody up to date on what's going on for the week, that week. Talk about the lines, talk about fantasy, whatever. And we do it for a reason. And that is because we have a lot of information that we spend all of our time as professionals, as we're supposed to be, in getting us the information that you need in order to make you want to keep coming back, because then you're going to keep getting smarter. That's an easy way to put it. So the smarter I get, because I'm getting the information, the smarter you're going to get because I'm going to share the information with you. And unfortunately, I just don't see enough of those people doing it the right way. So I know as far as covering college football, any NFL, I mean, I can do on Proline TV, another channel I do sports talk with. I talk NASCAR, I talk golf, I talk horse racing. I do that every week. When the football season ends, I go right into that full time. All those three, it takes me all the way through. NASCAR takes me through till November. Golf takes me up until football season with the playoffs ending there. And horse racing, I do that all year round. Now I'm able to dedicate, instead of saying 50% football and 50% those other sports, I've decided to dedicate now 80 to 90% of my time to football. and do it here on the Ourlads Football Network. And that's why I think this is going to be great, because I haven't dedicated almost my entire week's worth of work to football in a very long time. And maybe, I don't know, ever that I can recall, because I've always talked about other things, other sports, dating back to my early days on sports talk radio in South Florida. Because you can't just talk, it wasn't a football show that I was on. I was on a sports talk radio show. So we talked about anything. But now I get the opportunity to talk mostly football. And that's why I want to do this. And that's why when I hear this ridiculous stuff that comes out of some of these people, whoever they are, wherever they are, look, I can laugh it off. They don't know what they're talking about. We say it all the time to a lot of people on a lot of shows. Doesn't have to be sports. I get it. But what I think is really cool is they get to say what they want to say. It's America. You know that? I know. We all know it's the land of the free. It's the land of we get to say whatever we want. And it's also what I think is great about it is the opportunity where if you do a better job than the other person, the percentages are with you that it's going to impact somebody. Hopefully, of course, it'll impact me, but the goal is to impact your audience. And the more people you impact in that relation, the better things are going to be for everybody. And that's why I'm really stoked up about this. And you'll see me go on these rants every once in a while because probably won't do it after the next few weeks, but it's the first week, and I'm just so juked to be able to do this. I've been trying to do this for a while, and so yeah. So forgive me when I go on these rants. All right, let's talk Saints and Jacksonville, because I think we're done now. See, if I didn't notice the Michael Pittman in my notes here for the Colts, I would have been able to talk about these other teams a little bit earlier. So let's get right to it. Let's stay in the division and talk about Jacksonville. All right, where are we? So let's talk about one of their competitors. Oh, and speaking of the AFC South, you can check out the interview I did with Cole Thompson, covers the Houston Texans. We talked about a month or so ago. So that's available as well. So you can check that out. And we have yet to hook up with our Tennessee guy. So I'll know sometime soon. And if we don't hook up with him before the draft, then either we'll hook up with him after the draft or we'll find somebody else. But we'll represent Tennessee. So hopefully I'll be able to hook up with him. Okay. So here is Jacksonville, and I'm going to show you something that is just amazing. So you know the color-coded deal at Ourlads, which is if you see, let me go back here because I want to get let's go with the Colts were. Okay, so it's color-coded. You see here, gold acquired via free agency or a trade, red injured, inactive. Okay. So here you go. You see the Colts. They've got the gold free agent there. And they've got, what a surprise, right? All the gold is on defense for the Colts. Look at all this gold. All these are free agents, all right? All of them. Don't forget, you can come down here. You can take a look at the players that were cut, cap casualties. There were current free agents. That's the coaching staff as well. And then all you have to do is click this button, and you go to the free agency tracker. Shows you who's still available in free agency, who the Colts re-signed, and who signed elsewhere, and who's still unsigned. Okay. Now, let's go to Jacksonville. So let's look for Jacksonville's gold free agent players. And just like the Colts, there's only one player on offense. That's Chris Rodriguez. So the Jags have only signed one player on offense this offseason, and that is Rodriguez. They lose Etienne. They bring in Rodriguez. Oh, that should be okay, right? All right, we'll get into that. Defense. Wait, what? What's going on here? Do you see any gold? I don't. Wait, there's got to be some gold here. There's no gold. Are you kidding me? That's right. The Jacksonville Jags have signed one player, traded for one player. That's it. One player. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're a Jacksonville fan out there and you go, no, you missed. There's someone else. You forgot. They didn't put the gold there. One player. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't think it's a good thing because of who they lost. So at this point, Jacksonville has left their fan base just before the draft with this. Our top weapon on offense is gone, our running back, as far as this past year. I'm not talking about quarterback, of course. Our best player on defense this year, yeah. I think Devin Lloyd was their best player on defense this year. Is gone. Best player offense, gone. Best player defense, gone. Okay, well, we obviously had some other needs as well. There had to be some issues with the roster. Everybody has issues with the roster, even if you don't lose a whole lot of players. And look, let's just find out, how many did they lose? They lost, besides Etienne and Lloyd, they lost about another 7 players that were considered part of the unit that actually had some sort of an impact. And they replaced him with 1 player. And no first-round draft pick. So they took care of that last year. And they added, oh, wait, I don't see it. Oh, here he is, Travis Hunter. Now, if you look over here, you see Travis Hunter. Now, isn't this interesting? Travis Hunter is starting over here, but Travis Hunter is a backup over here. What does that tell you? Well, it could tell you one of 2 things. I think what it tells me is he's a better defensive back than he is a receiver. But that might not be the case in reality. In reality, it could be the other way around. But the Jags just need or have deficiencies at that position more than they do at receiver. Okay, fine. But the whole point is that they gambled on Travis Hunter. And I don't have a problem with them gambling on a player, a big time player, Heisman player and all that. But what I do have a problem with, and I said this last year, was the fact that they continued to allow him to have this, I'm going to play both sides deal and everything's going to be okay. I have been doing this long enough to know it's never okay. And the only thing that I was willing to give some benefit of the doubt to was that I've also realized that, over time, as we get older, as technology gets better, that we see these players capable of doing things that they never would have been able to do years ago. So, okay, I guess it's possible, but I was completely against it and thought, especially it's the NFL, man, just let him play one spot, be an all-pro. Why is that? What's so wrong about that? This isn't baseball. You can't have Shohei Ohtani out there and expect, because Shohei Ohtani doesn't have to worry about physical contact on every play. It just, okay, fine, whatever. They did what they did. They made a mistake, I think, but they've rectified it. Apparently, it does seem like, from what we're hearing, and we won't know until we get into training camp, more than likely, and we see it ourselves, but it looks like they're not going to keep doing that. It looks like they're going to pick a side. It's more than likely going to be on defense, and maybe they'll just use him on offense the way they would use any number of, type of players, dynamic 2-sport type players that we've seen in the NFL be able to do before. If you're a receiver, or let's just say you're a defensive back, and for a couple of plays, we're going to bring you in on offense and we're going to do some end arounds, or whatever the case may be. That's what they're going to do. Now, who knows? Maybe they'll do more than that. Maybe they'll do 10% instead of 30%. But when the player gets hurt, I'm sorry, but I can't call that a coincidence. You just can't. I don't care what happened. The fact is when you put your body through that, and especially because, your body is going through a couple of different systems. Your offense, when you're a wide receiver, you have to use your body one way, defense another way. So now your body is starting to do things counteracting what you were doing the other day or 2 hours ago. And I just think that's just way too much. Now, it's a kid, is a younger player. He's built for it, that sort of thing. But no, college is one thing. The pros are another. And I just hope that they've learned their lesson and they go back to doing what I think they should have done in the first place. Let him be an all-pro corner if he can. I don't know if he can. I still have seen and heard conflicting reports, even in this building, about whether or not he's as good as everybody thinks he is. Let's see what his scouting report was from Ourlads last year. Okay, now we don't have to go through all the accolades. We know all that. So I want to see what kind of criticisms there were about Travis Hunter. Let's see. Impress. Okay, still all good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Oh, here we go. Transitions from pedal can be, okay, that's not a big deal. Will overextend in press at times and lose, not a big deal. In run support, occasionally gives up yards after contact. Not a major deal. Look at Dion. Tends to hang on rather than gather and drive. Again, not big deals. Elite prospect who can impact the game in many ways. So that's a really good scouting report. And if he lives up to the scouting report, especially on defense, his primary role, which it should be, I think the Jags will be just fine. Okay, they just got to get him healthy, learn your lesson, move on, because you don't have a first-round pick. Okay, so now you don't have a first-round pick. You have lost your best offensive player. You have lost your best defensive player. That's a wake up. So just imagine you rode this incredible wave last year where you weren't sure if you had the right quarterback. It was a big year. Cohen comes in and it's like, well, this is it. We've got a new guy that did a great job with Baker, and he's already had a great reputation, and he's going to come in here with Lawrence. And if he can't get Lawrence to look like the guy we saw a couple of years ago when he led us to the postseason for the first time, then I think it's it. I think the writing's on the wall with Lawrence, and it's probably going to be time to move on at some point pretty soon. Well, none of the negative stuff happened. All the good stuff happened, and Lawrence regained some respect and regained at least some stature that he is the franchise quarterback for Jacksonville now. As long as Cohen's there, Lawrence, they should be just fine now. It's all going to be what happens in the postseason. He's going to continue at this rate to do really well in the regular season. There's nothing to believe that he won't be able to accomplish that. What we saw last year, it's just going to get better and better and better, and easier and easier and easier, of course, with the coaching staff and the familiar surroundings. Okay. So all of that's great. They had a tremendous run, winning streak to the end of the season, and everything was going great. Fan base, I'm sure, is ecstatic. We got a long winning streak and thinking about even the Super Bowl. And why not think about the Super Bowl when the New England Patriots actually made the Super Bowl? Okay. So not that they knew it at the time, but hey, it was the writing was on the wall that yes, they could have gone to the Super Bowl, and it didn't work out. Okay. They lost, one and done. And then just like that, if you think about it, everything was good. Well, that long winning streak, what was it, 10 games? everything is great. Everything's going great. And then it stopped when it stopped with the loss to the Bills in the playoff game. Since then, I'm sure there's been a lot of fans with the loss of Etienne and Lloyd and the realization there's no first round draft pick now to say, I'm not as stoked as I was just a short while ago, because the roster is not getting better. And we just lost a playoff game at home. And yeah, we won and we made the division and we made the playoffs, but we won the AFC South. Okay. So that's going to be interesting to find out how they rebound and how they continue to build this team, because we haven't seen it yet. One player they've added to the roster from the outside world. One. So what do they have to do? Well, they do have, I think they have 10 or 11 picks. They have 3 in round 3, 2 in round 5. And let's see what they need to do. So let's start on offense. And offensively, really, this is the side of the ball that they don't have to worry too much about. But I would say, look, they got to figure out what to do with Brian Thomas. And considering they do not have a first-round draft pick, this is the player that can get them a first-round draft pick if they want it. All right, because Brian Thomas definitely at this stage of his career, he's only played 2 years. He should still warrant a first-round draft pick. Now, if there's any doubt that a team late in the first round, I'm not talking about after the draft, talking about now, no team is going to probably give them a first-round draft pick after the draft because they don't know where that pick's going to be. But they know where it is now. And you know what? It could even just be another second-round draft pick, a high enough second. But we need more collateral to get better here. And that's the guy that can get it done. Will they make that move? I don't know. All I could say is that talent-wise, I really believe in Brian Thomas. I believed in him last year. I remember I picked him on I have 2 leagues I'm in. I'm in the Dynasty League, and then I do a year-to-year with a group that I've been with for like 25 years. The year-to-year league, I picked Brian Thomas. I had him late and his rookie season. I had him late in the draft. And that turned out to be an excellent move. And so I followed him and was very happy and saw everything that we all saw if we were watching Brian Thomas and we were breaking down his scouting report and his highlight clips and exactly what he could do in the passing game and what kind of a playmaker he could be. It all worked out. It was like all of this that we thought could be. And then last year happened. And look, things happen. You have injuries. You have scheme changes. And you also have sophomore slumps. So you have all these things mixed in that can happen to any second-year player. And so it happened to Brian Thomas. And I was actually kind of surprised initially when I started hearing a few months ago about the Jags being interested potentially in trading Thomas. And that really started to happen more with the acquisition of Jacoby Myers. And again, not having a first-round draft pick. Parker Washington looked really good in his role. Again, you thought that there might be Travis Hunter getting involved, but it's not going to happen. Get him. He'll be removed from this side of the ball, I believe, pretty soon. It may not be until we get it clarified for sure, but he won't be here. So don't look at him here. And really, I can't look at anybody here. So you're looking at these are the 3. And these are very, if you look at these 3, you're going, yeah, okay. And the tight end, Brenton Strange has really come on. And you go, and now you can understand with Etienne in the backfield why this offense took off last year, even with Brian Thomas struggling. Okay, so if they trade Brian Thomas, would that be a good move? If there are any Jacksonville fans out there, you let me know. Even if you're not a Jacksonville fan, let me know. Good move, bad move. Trading Brian Thomas, again, as long as you get a late first round or an early second round pick in this draft. Now, what would they need, or what if they made this move and they added a really good draft pick? What specifically? And you know what? They could also maybe trade for another young player. That's also possible. So, and I bring that up because I want to look at position. So what position would the Jags be looking at to compensate for the trade? Well, let's start right here in this area on the offensive line, on the interior. Now, they gave Cole Van Lanen money, so they like this guy. And Walker Little's another guy that I've heard there's potential some trade talks there. But Harrison is a fine is set up at right tackle. I'm gonna pop up. I can't pop this up over on the screen. Oh, wait a second, I got the wrong thing here. Just want to get some of my stats. Okay, so the thing that you have to look at for improvement along the offensive line. I mean, this is the obvious one here. Patrick McCarry came from Baltimore, and look, the reason he took this job and he left Baltimore was he wanted an opportunity to start. Baltimore was going to start him. Baltimore loved the fact that they could, he was excellent swing player off the bench. That's it, and he was very valuable for them. In that role, only in that role. He wants more. He wants to start. He goes to Jacksonville. Okay, fine. Well, he's not a starter. I'm sorry. He likes it. He gets paid more. Okay, but if Jacksonville wants to get better, they can't have Patrick McCarry starting. You got to improve that. And they went out and drafted a player last year already for the future. So now the question is, actually, they drafted two. Monheim and Millam. So now they do have a pair. Question is, we don't know, only they know, how much do they like these guys now that they've been there for a year? Okay? Because even Robert Hainsley, I mean, come on, he's got to improve upon, they got to get better there. Cleveland, Harrison, Van Lanen, they're set. But they got two spots right there in the middle of the offensive line that they need to upgrade. And again, are these guys the answer? We will find out in the draft. This is not, now, they're not going to be able to use like Brian Thomas to get Vega from Penn State. Not going to happen. Okay? Unless, let's say they get like a late first round draft pick from someone, and their first pick is, what is it? Their first pick, when is their first pick? 56th. All right, which is pretty far back in the second round. Okay, so let's say you've got a late first, early second, and you get the 56th. Now, you could move up. I just don't know if that kid's going to last. I can't see him lasting. A lot of people, and we talked about this, I believe, yesterday, we believe he's more than likely going to go to Baltimore. And if he's not in Baltimore, well, maybe he's available for the Jets. And I think the Jets will look at a receiver first. But if they don't get the receiver they like first, then I think if that player is still on the board, I believe really possible they go in that direction. So you're looking at a player that is just not going to get out of the top 20. And at the very latest, it's Pittsburgh and the LA Chargers. That's the very latest. Pittsburgh, LA Chargers, because Pittsburgh needs a guard. They lost him to free agency. Chargers, we know, need multiple interior offensive linemen. So he's not getting past that. So if a team like Jacksonville, and the reason I'm talking about this is because that's what you would want to trade Brian Thomas for. You wouldn't want to trade him and then just, all right, we're going to get the third best interior lineman in the draft. Well, I don't think that's worth it. And again, that's just my feeling. But hey, it'd be worth it to get the best guard in the market in this draft. Okay, we'll trade Brian Thomas, and that'll help us out. And then we'll just go ahead and figure out a way, maybe with our third round draft pick. Let's see, they have multiple thirds. They have 3 in round 3. So you could use that draft collateral, grab another receiver, get one in round 3, and you'll be able to get a couple of pretty good players will be available in that spot. All right. Outside of that, everything else is on defense. All right. They need some interior pass rush here. All right. So they got to get some more pass rush. Armstead's getting a little up there in age. So they need some interior pressure from this position. So let's see. And again, I can't show you the Ourlads scouting reports. Let's see. Let me take a look and see who could fit. Interior defensive tackles, pass rusher. Okay. Oh, well, here's one right away. Well, actually, let me see. But we're going to start at the top because we don't know where any of these guys are going to go. I mentioned this yesterday. Once you get to like outside the top 20, maybe 25 of the first round, from that area on, anything can happen. Any of these players, you can get players all over the place, and you can see players slipping. So some of the top defensive tackles in this draft class, not nose tackles, you got Peter Woods, okay, and he's got pass rush ability, so that would be a good one. Let's see, you have Caleb Banks, even though he had the injury situation last year. He had a really good week at the Senior Bowl. He had a good pass rush showing there. So you got Woods, you got Banks, and those would be your 2 guys early in the draft because they're not going to last late to where the Jags are right now. So let's say they decide we're going to trade Thomas and we want to get some more pressure on our defense in the middle. Then that's what you would look at. Okay, so if you were able to get a late first, early second, those 2 players. Now, if you don't wind up making this trade, you can sit where you are in the second round, and Zane Durant should be available from Penn State. Okay, now Zane is not a big guy, but he is a penetrator. Okay, so that is someone that would make a lot of sense. Excellent lateral mover, someone that is exactly what I'm talking about, what would fit Jacksonville. Let me see if I see anybody else along the way that makes sense. I think those are the best ones we talked about. Okay, so that's defensive tackle, interior pass rush. Now, weak side linebacker. Devin Lloyd's gone. Ventrell Miller steps in. All right, well, what are we going to do about Ventrell Miller? Is Ventrell Miller the answer? Well, Ventrell hasn't played an awful lot. When he's played, he's been, this past year, he's been okay. All right, nothing great, but he's just been okay. So only they know how much they really believe in Ventrell. And they also drafted Jack Kaiser last year. So now look, Kaiser is not Devin Lloyd. All right. So he's a different type player. He's where they got him in the 4th round was his high mark. He could have gone 5th round, even 6th round, but they got him. Solid player. And he's really where he should be. He's going to be eventually at some point in the next year or 2. The hope is he takes over middle linebacker and you go from there. I'm a Jalen McLeod fan. I like McLeod. Because of his size, I don't really know exactly where to play him. Oh, and Branson Combs, I'm also a fan of. I mentioned this last year, and I'm going to do it again this year. I went over a list of my top free agent players, the ones that you should look out for. I'll probably talk a little bit about it before the draft, but I really like talking about it after the draft because we know where the player is going and we look at the depth chart and we can find out, okay, well, which one of these players might benefit the most and actually utilize their talents and take over maybe a position to be a good player that nobody's expecting because you didn't get drafted. So I like Branson Coombs. Anyway, McLeod, I like him as well. And Abdullah is an interesting player, but he really hasn't taken that next step. So, and he's a different type of player anyway. So yeah, do they believe in Ventrell Miller? I don't know. Look, I don't think they're going to be able to get Ventrell Miller to do what Devin Lloyd did. And just the fact that you can see, when you a first round, a fourth rounder, they're different prospects for a reason. Okay, Devin Lloyd finally lived up to his draft billing and immediately took advantage of it. And that's unfortunate. But it's the way that Jacksonville played the game, and it's just the way that it worked out, and it does suck. If I'm a Jacksonville fan, I'm telling you right now, if you're a fan out there of Jacksonville and you know something because you watch this team and you have some feelings about it, share it. Let me know what your feelings are on why you like or dislike the fact that they let Etienne and Lloyd go. And, what you felt were the reasons that maybe anyone else, as far as our fan bases outside the area, would not know. I mean, we don't eat, drink, and sleep Jacksonville football. So I'd really appreciate that sort of information. Okay, so because of that, who could be available in the draft? And that would be an important position. So let me take a look at weak side linebacker. So off-ball linebacker. Let's see. And this is, again, if you have your own draft guide, you can follow along with me. All right. So who's available? I can get through the edge rushers. Here we go. All right. So Styles obviously gone. Rodriguez is a middle linebacker. Anthony Hill is more like a middle linebacker. So that's not going to work. CJ Allen, same thing. Okay, here's one. Jack Golday. Jack Golday from Cincinnati. All right. Now, a lot of people believe he will be taken late first, early second. He'll be like a top 40, 45 pick. Now, maybe Jacksonville, if he lasts, maybe they can move up a little bit and get him. But if they're enamored by Jack Golday, then that's a player that would fit. Okay. Because he's got, some really good, he's a very good athlete. He's got cover skill, very fast, and could be exactly what Jacksonville needs. Jack Golday. He would be the top guy. Taking a look around just to see if I see any others. No, he would be like the top end because some of the other players would be players that you could just sit where you are and take the pick. All right. So in other words, like a Kyle Lewis out of Pitt, someone like that. So you've got players available later. Just sit where you are. Or if you're in love with Golday and believe that he could be maybe just as good a player, because remember, Lloyd didn't really step up and dominate, say, at a very important position of the defense until last year. And there were still some warts on his game. It's just that when you are able to make game-changing plays like he did, it really masks the deficiencies. The question is, are there limited deficiencies and a big uptick in playmaking skill? Or it's the same thing we talk about with cornerbacks all the time, is we're willing to give up the touchdowns as long as the corner does a really good job in changing the game with interceptions and big playmaking ability. Because if you don't do that and you're giving up touchdowns, yeah, I mean, those touchdowns might look good to the fans. Hey, he's got 3 pick sixes this season. That looks great. Well, he's also given up 6 touchdowns and a high percentage overall in completion percentage. Yeah, that's not going to work out. So, Jack Golday, that would be somebody to keep an eye on. Okay, secondary. Outside depth for sure. Monteric Brown, nice to see him back. Monteric Brown was one of my sleepers back in 2022. And what was he supposed? Yeah, he was a 5th, 6th round player. So it was really nice to see that he developed into a player for Jacksonville. So I thought that was great. Really happy about that. So when it happened, now again, does it mean that he's like locked down? They're in great shape now? No, it doesn't. It's just that, he's done a good job and, he gives them, a good solid player at that spot. But Jordan Lewis at the nickel is getting a little older. Jerry and Jones, fine young player. Are they okay there? If they feel Jerry and Jones will take over for Lewis, we're good at nickel. Even Jabbar Muhammad is an interesting guy. Another interesting non-drafted corner who had a really good career at Texas. Or is it Oregon? Oregon. So, yeah, if you look at him, where did we have him as? 5th, 6th round grade. So this guy could have went in the 5th round, and they were able to get him after the draft. All right, so keep an eye on. You got Muhammad and Jones. So I think they're okay there. All right, now you got Travis Hunter. Okay, talked about that. Braswell is a solid player. He's a rotational guy. That's about it. But right here, you see this? No, not seeing it. And even though Braswell's a nice player, I don't really think he's starting material. I'm going to sit him out there starting all season. So we need another corner, especially since Travis is coming off an injury. So the question then becomes, is this the important part of the draft that Jacksonville needs to take care of? And if they trade Brian Thomas, this is what they're going to go after. And if so, then, well, first of all, how far does McCoy drop? That's going to be a big story on draft day on Thursday of next week. How far does Jamad McCoy drop, if at all, or does he get drafted in the top 15? Okay. Jacksonville's probably not going to be able to get him, so let's move on. But we don't know what's going to happen after that. You've got the 2 top corners. You've got the 3 top safeties. After that, it's anybody's guess who's going to be the 6th defensive back chosen, because it would be I think it'd be a pretty big surprise if it's not those top 5 in any order. But those are your top 5 defensive backs. Colton Hood stands the best chance of maybe surprising a little bit and breaking through as part of the top 5. So you do have Colton Hood. You got Chris Johnson. Jason Sarney was with me yesterday talking about the Dolphins. He's a big fan. And you also have Keith Abney. We talked about some of these players already. Stukes from Arizona. Cisse from South Carolina. So you've got some players, but the big ones would be Hood in this role, in this area, draft area, would be Colton Hood and Chris Johnson for outside corner. Now, I don't know where Terrell's going, and I kind of feel he's a nickel, but he also, of course, has outside experience. So we could throw Terrell in there, because if they envision him as an outside guy, he's in the mix. Absolutely. And he's also, like Hood, capable of breaking through and being top 5. I don't want to leave him out. And as we said yesterday, Keontae Scott, who is more of like a big nickel type, he's versatile enough where he can play a few different roles, nickel, safety, anyway, I don't think he would necessarily fit here, though. And Terrell either, because I think Terrell is going to be a slot. Okay. So there you go. That's what Jacksonville's looking for. I think we've run through the gamut. Keep in mind, Caleb Ransaw, expect him to definitely have an impact this season on what's going on with that safety room. And speaking of the running game, look, I'm a Bracial Tootin fan. I drafted him in my dynasty league. So I don't necessarily believe that Jacksonville, especially with the running game, with their passing game, and overall, I don't think they're going to get into the running back thing. That doesn't mean that if the right running back is available and they just feel that he grades so much higher than any other player that's in the vicinity of a need position, and they can't trade the pick. Yeah, I can see that happening. Maybe take a flyer on someone. Because I look at the rest of the backfield, and Dallas. He's serviceable, especially special teams. I think they got their room because again, Dallas special teams. They signed Rodriguez, their only free agent. If they didn't sign Rodriguez, I'd say absolutely. Take a look at a running back, give him a 3-man room, but they signed Rodriguez. And that's why I think, keeping in mind, it's the only player they signed. So because of that, I think that even has a bigger impact. That's telling you, oh yeah, if they actually went out and signed someone in that position, well, they must be set at running back now. And I think they are. And I think they expect Tootin in year 2 to pick up. Allen should do a really good job, as well as Rodriguez. Look, I think Rodriguez, I think what I like about the room is with Tootin as a starter, Allen is a superior receiver out of the backfield, and Rodriguez can give them a little bit more in between the tackles, a little bit more of a physical brand of football. So I think they've got a nice little situation there at running back. Which again, I look at this offense, and if they hold on to Brian Thomas, and if I'm a Jags fan, of course, I'm hoping they do. I don't want to lose Brian Thomas. Whatever happened last year, well, let's just hope that was, again, one of those things I mentioned before, and he can move on and he can come back to being a potential superstar. And if that happens, then the only thing they really have to do on offense is take care of this. Really, not Ezra Cleveland, this. Hainsey, Macari. It's all about, do they trust the 2 rookies from last year or not? And then everything else is on defense. Let's talk about the Saints. Before we do, Harris Smith getting back to Gio. And I 100% agree with you, Harris. Yes, he does a great impersonation of Mike Francesa. So, all right. Yeah, and I'm okay with Boomer. I think Boomer does a solid job. I think he's very important. Really, the way that whole FAN team looks like right now with their broadcasters, their analysts, and so forth, I think they're very fortunate to have Boomer there. Because if Boomer leaves, I think it's a shit show, basically, of goofballs. That's it. I think they lose a lot of respect up and down that lineup if he leaves. Because I think they've already lost a lot of respect in my mind from some of the shows I've seen, especially the one I talked about. The one I talked about with that, ridiculous idea of an insider. I got you. That's one of the Barber brothers, whatever show that is. That's an embarrassment. Okay. The New Orleans Saints. So, again, you can check out Darian Gray over at whodatdish.com. He does a great job with the Saints. And again, don't forget, we have that available in the library already from about a month or so ago. And Travis Holmes from Big Cat Country for the Jags. Now, a lot of people, a lot of Saints fans were really high on Taylor Shuck especially because they were able to get him in the second round and the way that he played. I really need to get some water. Okay. And I completely understand that. But when we graded Shuck and we talked about what could make Shuck a good quarterback in the NFL, or what kind of prospect you were getting, we talked about his age. We talked about his experience, and there were a lot of positives. But he's an older prospect. I mean, you look around the league right now and you see players come out at 20. And what is Shuck already? Shuck is already 20. He'll be 27 years old in September. 27. And he'll be a second-year quarterback in the NFL. Okay? Look, the Saints did not draft Tyler Shuck, and nobody is going to make you believe otherwise, or make me believe. They did not draft Tyler Shuck as their franchise quarterback. They said, you know what? With his experience and his talent, if he can stay healthy, that's the trick, because he was banged up too much in college. The only season he had when he was not banged up, he gets transferred over to Louisville. Brom, very good quarterback coach / head coach. And boom, he has a really big year, goes to the pros. And just like that, he's a second-round draft pick. So the thing with him is a couple things. First of all, stay healthy. Okay, he was healthy last year. Great start. But you got to keep doing it. And you know how tough it is in the NFL to stay healthy. Now, hopefully he got all the injuries out of his career in college, and he'll be able to stay healthy in the NFL. That'd be great. Spencer Rattler, meanwhile, is a solid backup. You need a backup. Well, what are you looking for in a backup? You're looking for someone that for one game or one quarter, whatever the case, short period of time, can come in and elevate his game at the right time to help your team win a game, whether it's as a backup, starter, or just in relief during a game. He can do that. I mean, there's a possibility he could do that. We know he can do it. We've seen it. But, with any backup, the problem occurs when you ask him to keep doing it. And the hope is also that he develops enough that whenever if you don't ask him to do too much, in other words, let's say you only needed him to back up for Shuck in a game for a half, twice during the season, well, you really need to make sure you do a good job in both of those games. Now, if they ask you to do it 4 times and you're successful 3, you did your job. And to tell you the truth, depending on how good your team is, sometimes just holding the fort. Do 2 out of 4, you did your job. And I think you could do that. But you ask him to do too much of that, and no, he's not a starter in this league. Now you got Zach Wilson. And I talked about this the other day about Zach. To me, as a Jet fan, Zach is one of these quarterbacks, and it's interesting, of course, a former Jet, and we've just seen what's happened to 2 other talented early first-round draft pick Jets. And there isn't a doubt in my mind that it's going to happen to Zach, because Zach has just as much talent as those guys. The only thing that Zach has not had at this point is coaching. Okay, he has not been in a spot. He was in a spot with Denver, with Peyton. All right, but they had their guy, and nothing was going to change that. They had their rookie quarterback, and they drafted him, and he's the guy. And Zach knew it. He got an opportunity to get coached up a little bit by Peyton, but that was it. He wasn't going anywhere. There was no future for him in Denver. So now he's kind of in the same situation he was with Denver, but actually he's in the same situation he was with Miami, where he's got another young player to compete with. Now, for most of the year last year, he was the number 2. Until the end, when the season was over, well, they knew Zach wasn't going to be there, so they were going to play him. So they played, of course, Ewers. Now here, this might be different because Rattler's started some games and he's been here for a couple of years. So that will be a competition. And I think this is going to tell us a lot because now he's with another good offensive mind, Kellen Moore, a younger version. And I think that's good for Zach. So I think this could be interesting because, again, what happens if something happens to Shuck? All right. So what Zach needs is, first of all, he needs to have a coach that knows how to coach. And he's got one. And number 2, he needs opportunity. Okay. So we'll see if he gets that. Now, if he doesn't get it here, let's say the season's over, he didn't get a chance to play. Well, this is just going to, okay, do I re-sign here? Or will there be an opportunity somewhere at some point? Because there will. At some point, there'll be an opportunity where an opening will come up, where a coach will see that, you know what? Like, for instance, I'm just going to throw it out there. And again, this would only work out well for Zach if he's going to take that next step. And that would be, let's say it's the Rams. And the Matthew Stafford. The writing's on the wall. He's only got a year or 2 left. And they don't really have a legitimate number 2 yet. See, I think the Rams are going to draft a quarterback this year. And I would not be surprised if they drafted a quarterback fairly early. Now, they're not going to do it in the first round because they're trying to win a Super Bowl. Probably won't do it with their next pick. But they could take a stab somewhere around round 3 or round 4. Because who cares about round 6 or round 7? Because they already have one of those guys already. But I'm talking about a guy, I don't know, anybody. I don't even know where Beck's going. You know, I don't know if he's a 3rd round guy or a 4th round guy, but let's throw him out there. So let's say they draft Beck. Okay. Well, now forget about Zach. But let's just say, no, they don't draft anybody for whatever reason. It just didn't work out. They didn't draft them. And that's just, we're going to push it back to next year. Well, then let's say next year comes and Zach's looking for a spot. And it turns out after that next year, the Rams win a Super Bowl and it says Stafford's got about a year or 2 left. That would be the perfect opportunity for Zach to go somewhere like that. Go somewhere where you've got a great coach. You can sit for a year. You can learn and then take over as long as he is able to do that. And I'd be interested to see exactly if that would happen now. I don't want to see that happen for Zach when he's 32 years old. 30 years old. You're still young enough. You've got all of your weapons. You're how old is he? He's not even, what is he? 25, 26. How old is Zach? 26. So he'll be 27 years old. He's in the prime of his career. And I'd just love to see him get that opportunity. Also, just because, I would like to see if he's got the goods or not, because I've seen it as a Jet fan. Okay. He with terrible coaching and with terrible personnel, I've seen him come up with plays. I've seen him win games at the end. I've seen him make big plays at the end of games that I remember that Giant game. It was a great example. That game looked completely over. And I think he got sacked on one play. And they were like, I don't know, something like 3rd and 25 or something like that. And he was able to pick up a first down. He's able to throw the ball again, it was everything encompassing, which that segment encompassed everything about Zach. Was the sack, and then the next play making a great play to get them a first down and to keep the drive alive, and then eventually kick the game-winning field goal for them to win the game. So the talent's there. He just needs the coaching. Okay. But right now, I look at this room and I say they're fine. There's no reason for me to think otherwise, except we don't know what's going to go on with Simpson. I think we're starting to see. I really think what'll happen is he's going to last. He'll be available in the 20s, and it's just going to be a team that wants him to either someone's going to trade into the first round to get him, or he may not even get drafted in the first round, and he'll sit there overnight. And I think that is entirely possible. And then if you're Kellen Moore, remember, they just used a second-round draft pick on a quarterback last year. So why wouldn't you potentially think about that again? If you think that quarterback had long-term starting potential, okay, you're not going to draft another guy like Tyler Shuck. In other words, a guy that is second-round talent. You just maybe going to go, you know what? I don't think that guy deserved to be a second-round draft pick. I think that guy's better than that, and I'm going to go and get him. Keeping in mind that Shuck would have been a first-round draft pick had he been 23, 22 years old. But he's not. Okay? So I think it's entirely, and again, he's got an injury history. You can't forget about that. You cannot ignore it. So you have to be prepared as a coach and say, do I feel comfortable with Zach Wilson, let's say? Because let's just say that's my draft pick. And I'm willing to go into 2027, and there's a lot of quarterbacks there. And if Tyler Shuck, if something happens to him, he regresses to the point where, yeah, you know what? That tells me that I can see what his ceiling is now. Throw in his age, and if I get an opportunity to get a really good quarterback in 2027, that's what I'm going to do. Or the opposite. And Shuck elevates his game, stays healthy, and now Shuck is our quarterback. Shuck's our franchise quarterback. I don't care that he's 27 years old. We're going to have him until he's 35. He's our guy. So we're going to find that out this year. So I don't expect they're going to go quarterback. Like I said, that's because I think the addition of Zach Wilson says we've got our room now. They're all young. We've got our room. Okay. Now, let's talk about offense, more offense. Let's talk about wide receiver. And this is a complete unknown, really, because Tipton and was a nice revelation. You love it when you get these guys from, small schools, Ivy, and we don't even have a scouting report on him. Okay. So he plays well. I should have gotten my stats in front of me here. Let me get that lined up. So he plays well. And again, non-drafted player. That's even a bonus. Vele plays well too. But they didn't play a lot. Again, you got to keep that in mind. It weren't like, hey, they were 800 snap guys. But you have a number 2 in Chris Olave. Chris Olave is a number 2. And you need a number 1. Vele and Tipton. And Vele I think he's up there in age. So he's up there in age. And you've got Tipton. Okay, which is nice. And you got a few other young receivers. Okay. Not bad depth. Maybe, one of these guys will also make the team, but you don't have a number 1, and you definitely I would say you need 2 more receivers in this room to fill it out. Okay. Unless one of these other guys does step up and is a legitimate, 4 or 5. All right. So if one of those guys steps up and does that, you just got to get 1 receiver. But they've got, but they're not, look, there are some people who believe it could be in the first round. And you know what? That is possible. Most of us are looking at New Orleans and we see the biggest needs are on defense. And we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But they could have the opportunity to draft the first receiver. And even if they don't, Lemon's going to be there. Tyson's going to be there. And you know what? Sadiq's going to be there. So, and we'll get to tight end in a second. So they're going to be able to get whoever, if they like the receiver, they're going to be able to get him. And even what I mean by that is if they like someone so much, and it would be Tate, and they thought he was going to get drafted in a spot or two before him, if they liked him that much, they can get him. They're not going to do that. There's no need to do that. Just stay where they're at and get their guy. Now, who would be the guy? And I've said this yesterday, and I'm going to keep saying this, but everybody, we do this every day. We get new viewers. Jordan Tyson is the only receiver in this group that's in number one. The only number one in this group. So if the Saints, there's two things they can do. One, we like him so much. We don't care about the injury deal. He's going to be a great compliment to Olave. We're taking him. That's it. End of story. We did the same thing with Shuck. He had an injury history. We took the chance, even though it was a second round. We go from there. Or we want Tyson. We like him a lot. He's the guy. But we're willing to take the chance because we'll get some additional collateral. By doing it, we're going to trade down. So the Saints, again, I don't see the Saints trading down unless it's for that scenario. That they want Tyson, but they don't want to take him at 8. But they could. And who knows? Maybe I'll go with Tyson in my last mock draft. I like it. What I like to do in my mock drafts is I like to do a few things for a few teams that nobody is expecting in mocks, because that's exactly how the drafts always take place. Players are getting drafted in the top 10 and the top 20 and top whatever. They're always getting drafted in situations that people just would never think. And so that's why I always try to just have fun and do that a few times. So who knows? I remember yesterday, in the last couple of days, we've talked about Tyson. I think they would be great spot with the Raiders if they wanted to trade up into the first round to get him, and the Patriots if he slid into the 20s and they want to trade up and get him. But that's if he slips. It only takes one team to say, nah, we don't care. We want him. But again, if they trade down, keep an eye on that. And we will talk about it, obviously, next Thursday. If they do trade down, that'll be on our mind. But if they don't trade down, let's take a look at the rest of the team. So tight end, I don't know why the acquisition of Noah Fant means the Saints don't need to draft a tight end. Noah Fant has been really, if you think about Noah Fant's career, I'm sorry, but it's been a disappointment. It feels like he's been around. Let's see, it was 19. So yeah, it is. He has been around, even though he's 28 years old, 8 years. So he came in as a pup. You can't come in any younger. And when he came in, he was a big deal. Okay, because he came from Iowa, and Iowa had this, this recent success with their tight ends. And it was like, oh man, this is the next really big tight end from Iowa. First round draft pick. This is going to be great. And it wasn't. And he never was able to up his game and to get to that point that everybody envisioned when he was drafted. And so I find it interesting that they sign him and it's like, all right, that's it. The Saints are finding a tight end. Now, look, I can say, well, they used the 7th round draft pick on a tight end last year. So, all right, well, maybe they like him. Again, he's bottom of the end, tight end. Okay, fine. And Juwan Johnson's a nice tight end. He is. He's probably one of the more underrated tight ends in the league. I get it. But we're talking about Juwan Johnson here, okay? And he was a college free agent for a reason. And look, it's a nice story, but as you can see, where do we have him? All right, fifth round talent. So again, a very solid player in this league, Juwan Johnson. But if you want a special player, Noah Fant's not going to stop you. And since the Saints want difference makers in their passing game because they need it, we talked about the 3 receivers. So let's just say they have no interest in Tyson because of his injury. And let's say Tate's off the board. And now they've got a decision to make. And they might just say, well, I don't know if I want to go with Lemon with Olave because, again, we're looking for a 1, and that would make Olave a 1. And I know some people might think he's a 1. And if maybe his ceiling is a 1-, and maybe we could live with that, especially if we have Lemon, and that's maybe something we'll think about. The other thing that you could do is go, no, wait a second. If we get Sadiq in here and we have a tight end like Johnson, who we still like, well, now all of a sudden, that's a little bit more of what we're looking for. Let's go in that direction. And, I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think people should be completely ignoring it because of Noah Fant. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Okay. Noah Fant is not this difference-making tight end that will preclude the Saints from passing on a tight end. That's my feeling. Okay. Now, one more to go on offense, and that's right guard. They made the move for David Edwards. Good move. You can see, let's see. They it wasn't about losing anybody. It's just, it was about upgrading. So that's an upgrade. Right. So they have their bookends from the last 2 drafts. Very smart. Excellent moves. I agree with it 100%. I should know. Jets did the same thing the last 2 years. I think that's beautiful. And they got 2 good players. Neither of them are busts, or neither of them were overrated. No, these are going to be really good players for them. And you bring in a solid player in Edwards. McCoy is just okay. McCoy is McCoy. And, there's nothing spectacular about him at center. Overall, let me just see what his situation is here over. You're looking at age-wise, is in the prime of his career. Again, solid player. Don't have to worry about center. But Cesar Ruiz it's really strange, to tell you the truth, that, and maybe it's just because they just haven't been able to find anybody else, but it's like they just keep bringing Cesar Ruiz back like if he deserves it, and he really hasn't. And sooner or later, they have to upgrade Cesar Ruiz. So if you really want to put together a kick-ass line, it's not going to be with Cesar Ruiz. So that's why right guard is something to keep an eye on. Now, would they go crazy and draft a kid from Penn State at number 8? No, that's a little too rich. That's not going to happen, most likely. But they can also trade down. I guess besides Tyson, I would look at guard as well. That's definitely possible if they trade down. But that's it. Other than that, I think the offensive line is in decent shape now with the tackles and the acquisition of Edwards. Okay. Defense. And yeah, we don't have to talk about running back because Etienne's awesome at this point after an awesome year. Kamara, now that he'll have limited snaps, that makes him better. And they still have Neal and Miller. So that room is loaded. Okay, defensively, this is where they have to get work done. We'll start on the edge. And Cam Jordan has still been unsigned. And, there are 3-4 here. So that's another thing. They got to look for 3-4 edge rushers. Chase Young, he's okay. That's it. He's just okay. Decent edge rusher, but they don't have anything else. All right. So I don't even think they're going to re-sign Jordan. So there's nothing else here. Now, Diggs was one of my sleepers last year. Again, late round pick sleeper. I really think now I totally knew that it was going to take him a few years of development time, but I think he had the good makeup and athleticism that if he was coached up, then in a couple of years, maybe you got something. So I'm very interested to see if he can progress into a competent player. But that's wishful thinking at this point. And again, there's nothing else. So this is not just we need an edge rusher. This is we need 2 edge rushers. All right. So that becomes a major, major need for the team. And that's why the first round draft pick is definitely in play for the Saints. And taking a look at some of the possibilities. Actually, what did we have? I'm going to quickly see what we did. Well, what I did. I went corner. We'll get to corner in just a second. Yeah, I went corner for the Saints. So who will be available that fits their system here better than the rest? Well, Arvell Reese will be gone. David Bailey will be gone, even though David Bailey, I think he's a different system player. Cassius Howell won't work anyway. Yeah, Cassius Howell. Actually, you know what? I think David Bailey would fit. Excuse me. I shouldn't have said that. David Bailey would be just fine in this system. But David Bailey would be gone. So, and Cassius Howell, they'll be too early. Okay. If you take a look then at the other edge rushers, we know Bain does not fit in this system. I don't think he'll be available though. All right. And Mesidor, the same thing. They played in the same system in Miami. This doesn't work here for New Orleans. Falk, look, I'm not saying they won't like Falk, and he could get drafted here because that depends on what they think about their depth at defensive tackle. Their 3-4 ends. They did draft Broughton last year, so I think they're okay. Maybe they could use an upgrade at some point later in the draft at nose tackle. Would it surprise me? No, if they added another defensive lineman here, but not early. I don't think that's what's going to happen because that would have been the role for Keldrick Falk. Okay, so and that's it. I think where they're at, I just don't think it's a good spot to pick because again, I think the players will be gone that they need, and the other 2 from Miami, especially Bain, I don't think it fits their scheme. So when you need edge rushers and you need them bad and you can't fit it here, what do? Well, you could trade down. Again, this becomes now another potential spot where they can go because Howell would be the one that sticks out. Now, would this be one of those mock draft moves I talked about where, hey, maybe I'll put Howell here and surprise everybody and maybe he'll be a surprise pick? Absolutely. He fits a surprise pick. Whether I would do that or not, I don't know. But this would be a really good scheme for him. He's just not supposed to go this high. So I'm looking at if you want Howell, do it later. And a matter of fact, the more I think about it, the Saints are a really good trade candidate because again, they could, if they trade down, they have several options depending on how far they go. And we just went over them. Wide receiver, guard, edge rush. So I think the Saints were a really good trade down option. All right. Now, why did I not have edge rusher? I went over that. So what did I have? I mentioned it. I went corner. I went with the local kid. Matter of fact, Ourlads in their most recent mock did the same. So when I talk to those guys with the final mock on Wednesday, we'll see where they go. Don't forget to check in here Wednesday night next week. Start time sometime between 6 and 8 Eastern. I'll let you know as soon as we confirm. So Delane and McCoy. Both corners should be available here. And this definitely to me is the major need and spot that makes way too much sense if they don't trade down. Okay. They've got Kool-Aid here on the right, Riley right here in the nickel. They're in good shape at safety with Howden, Reed, and Sanker. And you got Blackman there too, veteran. This is a big issue here at left cornerback. All right, big issue. All right, there's no other big issue on this depth chart in the entire depth chart than right here. This is the biggest one. Even though they need 2 edge rushers and 1 corner, the 1 corner trumps. They need a starting left corner. And I'm just using the left just because that's what it says on the screen. All right, so Delane would be the guy. Now, what happens if Delane somehow goes before? Could happen. Well, could go to Washington, right? Absolutely. What if that happened? Would they go to McCoy at 9, at 8? Yeah, I could see that. You'd be taking a chance a little bit, but look, with Tyson and McCoy, both of those players are more than capable. Matter of fact, before their injuries, coming into the 2025 season. Well, I shouldn't say that with Tyson. I'll say that with McCoy. Well, no. Let's just say it the way I was saying it. Before the injuries, both McCoy and Tyson were top 10 locks in the NFL draft. Top 10 locks. Okay, but now you got the injuries, and now it's up to every general manager to have their own opinion and which way to go. And I don't know. I don't know if you would take him at 8. But again, another option. So if they trade down, like that, McCoy's available. Look. What's it? Let me make sure. I want to make sure that I completely pronounce this kid's name. Because the one thing I hate doing is butchering names. Ioana. Matter of fact, I'm even going to write this down here. So Vega Ioana. And also Tyson. So Tyson, Ioana. I'll throw in Sadiq. Why not? And then you've got edge rushers. I don't know if I pinpoint one specific. Howell. Let's throw Howell in there. Throw his name in there. And now McCoy. So these are all the guys that the Saints would have an option of taking later that you wouldn't want to take at 8. And so now you can go down 10 spots, 8 spots. You don't have to say, we can only go down 2 or 3 spots because there's only 1 or 2 guys. No, you got like 5 or 6 guys maybe to choose from. Yeah, you can go down like 10 spots. You don't have to worry about that. That opens up the playing field for trade partners. All right, but either way, they got to get a corner. All right, so let's say they don't want to take McCoy. They're not trading down. Well, what do you do if Delane's off the board? Wow, that's a tough one. The only thing I could say is they would then have to take one of those players I talked about that maybe would be a little bit early. So when we talk on next Thursday, if that happens to be the case, if Delane's off the board, and let's say Tate's off the board, because I'm not even sure, I'm not even going to get into the whole who's better and all that stuff. I just want to put the whole Tyson thing in because of his injury to make it a good discussion. So let's say that's the case. Who would they take? Well, they're definitely not taking Howell, so let's skip that. So it would be between Ioana, Tyson, no Sadiq, definitely not taking him at 8. And no, that's it, right? Yeah, I think that's it. Tyson wide receiver, Ioana at guard, and McCoy. So those are the 3 guys. If I have to stay at 8, which one would we take? And I think, I think I might go Tyson. I think that's the way I'm going to go. Especially because for any team to take a chance on an injured player, it would be Tyson or McCoy. It would be the Saints because of what happened with their quarterback. But it would be really close that I'm taking Tyson over McCoy. And that's what it would be. I would take Tyson over McCoy. I just don't think they'll use a top 10 pick on a guard. I think he's worth it, but I just don't think they'll do it. But we'll see. Again, I think Delane will be there. And that's why I think Delane's the pick there. I'm having a hard enough time thinking of, all these other players that fit in that spot with what their need is. So, but hey, that's why it's so awesome, because you never know what's going to happen in these drafts. And teams are always going to make decisions that you don't think they're going to make. Oh, I was looking at all the mock drafts and nobody had that player going in the top 10. What the hell? How'd that happen? And you know what also, what you'll see after the draft, when somebody puts out a mock and says so-and-so was the third, should have been the 30th pick, and he was the 12th pick. Well, that makes me look like an idiot. So I have to put down the general manager. That shouldn't have happened. That's a reach. Of course, you've got other people who feel the same way, and but there's a little ego involved. Absolutely. Don't make me look stupid. It's not me. You. What are you doing there drafting that guy higher than he's supposed to go? And that's the funny part too, is that because it is interesting how you get a wide range of experts that come up with the mocks, and they all generally do have a pretty decent consistency within where the players are getting drafted, give or take, 5 to 10 spots for at least the first 20, 25 picks. And after that, then, like I said before, once you start getting into the 20s, mid to late 20s of the first round, anything's possible. You can get any player from that was graded, mid-second, early third, that can go late in the first. All right. By the way, at special teams, they did add Ryan Wright. So I have to check and find out whether or not that's an answer for Wright. And also keep in mind, too, I was mentioning McCoy. McCoy's a good player, but he is injury prone. Okay? So I think it's another reason why you'd want to make sure that if you can, that you upgrade this position at right guard. Because if he's not playing and you have to play someone that's just a backup, and then you also have to play Ruiz, that is not a good thing. See, last year, you were dealing with, because I don't know how many games McCoy played last year. Let's see. How many games did he play? McCoy played half the season. So he was out week 7. So he missed the second half of the season. Okay. And so that happens. And now, again, remember the left guard spot was not very good. So you have the entire interior of the offensive line was underwhelming. So first step, bring in David Edwards. Second step should be upgrade right guard. Third step should be at some point in this draft, you upgrade at center as well. You add someone at center. And remember what I said yesterday. I think there are 7 starting caliber centers in this draft. And the good thing is you don't have to worry about drafting them early. Connor Lew might be the number 1 guy as far as the draft. He's coming off an ACL from last year. So he's got to be going somewhere mid to late second round. Jack Slaughter's supposed to be the next guy, even though he's my favorite. So you see what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden you're thinking about, then you got Logan Jones, Sam Hecht, Bryce Foster, even Pat Coogan and Parker Brailsford. Even though Brailsford would probably be a nice pickup for the Niners. He works with those types of zone-based schemes. But there are 7 starting caliber centers in this draft in my mind. They should be able to get one of them. So do that, and I think they'll have themselves a nice little offseason there in the offensive line. They'll be set. Edwards, center guard. And you already have your 2 tackles. Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, with the rest of this team here, Ryan Wright, is he the guy? I don't think I have anything from my conversation with Darian on Wright. I don't know if he was there, depending on the time I spoke to Darian. Let's see. And then place kicker, absolutely. All right. So they are not going to go into the regular season with Charlie Smythe as the starter without competition. And he might not even be the guy. Where did this guy come from? No College. I like that place. I have a degree in No College. So he was a free agent in 2024 for the Saints. No College. Okay. Yeah, I don't think Charlie No College Smythe will be the place kicker for the Saints, but you never know. So the Saints will be looking for a kicker. Maybe they'll draft one. Speaking of kickers, let me take a look at the hard copy of the draft guide from Ourlads. Okay. You can order it. There's a link in the description of this video. Click that link. All right. Let's see who's available. Kickers, excuse me. I got scouting reports all over the place here. All right. So there are 3 scouting reports on kickers, 6 overall. And just so you know, the same in punter. There's 3 in punter, but a lot more punters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is about 12 punters overall in the guide, 3 scouting reports, and only 6 place kickers, 3 scouting reports. Meaning, if they don't have a scouting report, that means they're just not considered draftable. That's it. It doesn't mean they won't turn into pros. Players that get undrafted make the pros all the time. But that's because this would be twice the size if they had scouting reports on every single player. So they just, make sure that they have enough. And if they're not available for a scouting report, then they do not believe that they'll be right on the line whether they'll be drafted or not. 7th round / college free agent. Taking a look at these guys myself, the one that sticks out of the 3, just because I know him and I love him, is Dominic Zavada from Michigan. So Zavada had just an awesome 2024. And if he would have came out that year, he would have been drafted for sure. He might have even been a 4th or 5th round pick. And he did not. He came into 2025, and all of a sudden, there was inconsistency in his game. And that's too bad. But he was in college a while. I think he was in college for like 6 years, transfer. Last couple of years at Michigan. Oh, next year, I don't know if you remember the postseason in college, that kicker for Ole Miss, if he continues to develop and have just as good as the season he had this season, he might be the highest ranked place kicker in years. Talking about Lucas Caniero. He was a first-team All-American in 2025. I'm not sure what is I don't know what happened last year as far as his awards, but this dude has a long-ass leg. In other words, this is the guy that teams are going to look at the way that they look at Cam Little and Aubrey. And those are like the only two kickers of that like I did it last year in my year-to-year draft. What I try to do is I try and keep in mind in our year-to-year we have a different point system to make it fun. So because kickers can be boring, so what we do is like we really up it. Like things like if you kick it over 50 yards, 55, 60, we really give you even more points than the average league. So what I do is I look and I say, okay, is it possible this year that once I get all my starters on the team and I start looking at reserves now, right at that point, are there enough players in reserve, at least until I'm coming around again for the next couple of times, like the next 20 picks, 25 picks, do I feel like I have enough players now that I generally feel, yeah, none of these guys really are great over another. And I think this is a really good time. Now that I have all of my starters in place, yeah, this is a good time. I can draft a kicker now. Defense, no, that goes last. But kickers in our league, man, can go probably 3 spots earlier than in most leagues based on the way we have the points. So last year was the first time I actually took advantage of it, because for the most part, I really, even though I had that strategy last year I'm talking about, I didn't have that strategy before. I was like, I'll start taking kickers when the first guy takes a kicker. And a lot of people do that in leagues. They follow that same deal. And I just decided last year, because the year before, I remember I did wait, and it turns out that I had a really bad kicking situation. Like I thought I had a good kicker. I had Dicker, and I thought I was in great shape. I said, I was able to get this guy like really late. And I thought, this is the way to go, man. And Dicker's a good kicker, but he got injured. And the Chargers weren't using Dicker to kick the way that they were with Little and Aubrey. And so at the end of the year, I was like, you know what? That's a lot of points difference. So I'm going to make sure in the next draft, I'm not going to let that happen again. Next time, I'm going to put myself in a position that if I feel I've got my starters in place, I'm going after Aubrey or Little. And that's what's now really we're starting to get to that point now. Who will be that next kicker? Let me know who you think that next kicker, if he's in the NFL, who is it? Who is that next kicker that's that really boomer that could be in that in that company? Because I know there were a few of those guys that I would put in the mix. We'll talk more about that in a few months for sure. Once we start getting, because I'll have Jared Smolin on quite a bit from Draft Sharks. I know he's going to get really busy at some point, but we're going to have our draft probably next month after this draft in our Dynasty League. And once we do that, then I know I'll have a little bit of wiggle room before he gets really busy. And then that's when I'll have him on. We'll probably talk about the draft and then talk about how our draft looked. We'll show it on the screen. We'll go over, Shane Hallam, who was with me to do the mock draft a couple of weeks ago on this network. So Shane's in it. Dave Syvertson's in it from Ourlads. And a few other people who you see me interviewing. Kent was an owner, but he had to back out going into last year. So anyway, we have a good league. We have Ourlads guys and Draft Sharks guys. And Draft Sharks, like one of the top fantasy sites out there. So it was really stiff competition. A lot of fun. Okay, anyway. So, yeah, they got to get a kicker. Other than that, Caden Ellis was a nice pickup. Even though they lost Davis, Ellis is a nice pickup. That's fine. The thing that they do lose, though, is the leadership of Davis. Ellis might actually be a better player right now than Davis. But Davis is a hard leader to lose because that's the reason why the Jets picked him up. All right. They also, of course, as I said, no Cameron Jordan. He's still a free agent. And Taylor, that's why Yodam's there. That's, a big spot they got to replace. Okay, that's it. That's enough. I'm out of here. Boy, the last 2 days, we've been doing 3 hours. What's up with me? Trust me, I don't think we're going to be doing 3 hours when the draft is over, but there's so much to talk about for every team. And I hope you guys like it. And, just again, I'd really like to know what you think as far as the programming, overall content, again, your participation, questions, whether it's live or on demand after. That's got to get going. We really got to get some questions, some Q&As in here, some back and forth in the comment section. So I really appreciate that if we can get that going. If you appreciate what I do, then, hey, any give back you can do would be much appreciated. Obviously, subscribing, liking, and sharing. It's not just a catchphrase. It's for real. That's how we're going to build this thing and how I'm going to be able to talk 3 hours a day and give you as much information as I can in both the NFL and college football. We got to get the subscribers up. Again, I want to get to 10,000 by the beginning of the season in September. So we've got a little ways to go, and let's get that cooking. I'm going to try to see if I can give away one of these PDFs. I just got to figure out how. But I want to see some more interaction before I give that PDF away. So let's get that going. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern. Special guest would be Anthony Miller, Inside the Eagles. We'll talk about A.J. Brown and the Eagles. Take a look at who they're going to potentially draft. As far as the rest of the show and the teams we're going to cover, I don't know yet. We'll figure that out. We'll put it in there. Who knows? Maybe we'll have another guest too. And remember, next week, I've already got a special guest lined up for Tuesday night. That's Kyle Madsen, covers the San Francisco 49ers. So if you're a 49er fan, we've got someone ready for you Tuesday night, right here on the Offense Today. Wednesday night is our final mock draft. Thursday night, Friday night, live coverage of the draft right here on the Ourlads Football Network. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks to Kent Sterling from the Kent Sterling YouTube channel. Check out the link in the description so you can follow his work. And don't forget the links in the description for some of the previous shows. You can also order the Ourlads Insider, which is bonus content from Ourlads on the website. Okay, not this network, but from the Ourlads.com website. Bonus content, including no ads. Okay, so if you're bugged out by surfing on Ourlads for ads, if you join the Ourlads Insider, link in the description, check it out. no ads. All right. And you can also check out our social media stuff as well. See everybody tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern, Ourlads Football Network.